Good afternoon, everyone. We are just about ready to begin. I would like to formally welcome you all to this event, Next Stage. And before we get into the program, I would just kindly ask our External Affairs Chairperson to start us off in prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us pray. Lord, thank you so much for today. Thank you for bringing such amazing, talented people together in one sitting, even though it's virtual. Lord, I ask that you will let all of us understand the knowledge that's presented before us and to implement it in the best way possible. Please bless all the presenters and their words, and let everything be said here for our benefit and for your honor and glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Rihanna. Okay. Deputy Dean of Outreach, or respected guests, President of the Faculty of Engineering Alumni Association, President of the Mona Engineering Society, students, and other attendees, welcome. I am Ashley McPherson. I am the Vice President of Internal Affairs for the Mona Engineering Society, and I graciously thank all of you for being present at this moment. Now, the next stage is an initiative that I had thought of at the beginning of the academic year, and now I proudly thank all of you for making this event a success. So STAGE is an acronym that stands for Scholarship, Transition, and General Employment. And so this event is catered both to our present and future students of the Faculty of Engineering. So the first segment will solely focus on financially transitioning. In other words, how can you fund your degree at the University of the West Indies, Mona, in the Faculty of Engineering? Now, I have personally seen high school students struggle as they try to make this transition, and so I'm eager to hear from our presenters on this portion. Also, for the second segment, we will be having, it's mainly for our final year students, but it's catered to all students, where you can be aware of all your options that are available to you after graduating, and who best to hear from than members of our alumni association. So with that basic rundown of today's event, I would just like to inform all the speakers that you do have access to share your screen if you need to for your presentation. And I welcome you to answer any questions that come to you in the chat. Also, I have some students monitoring our YouTube stream, and they'll be feeding any questions from there into the chat, and you may answer it there, or you may wait until the general question segment. Now that I have said my piece, I invite our first speaker for today, Mrs. Caroline Mahfood. So Mrs. Caroline Mahfood currently serves as the CEO of the Grace Kennedy Foundation. In addition to being grounded in the principles of philanthropy through her role as the executive director, she also serves as a member of the board of the Grace and Staff Community Development Foundation, where she chairs the education committee. Now, Mrs. Mahfood is also the chair of the Jamaica Network of Corporate Foundations and co-founder and vice chair of the Caribbean Philanthropic Alliance. Please help me welcome Mrs. Caroline Mahfood.
Miss, you're muted.
Sorry, Miss Mahfood, you're currently muted. Just unmute yourself.
I apologize. So you didn't hear anything I just said a while ago?
Not one bit.
So sorry. I just wanted to thank you again for having me. And I wanted to say that I'm really proud of this initiative that your team has come up with, because it's very important for students who want to study engineering to understand all the paths that they can go to raise the funds to be able to do the degree. So I wanted to share my screen, but it's not allowing me to share until Ashley, I think you have to stop sharing. Thank you. All right. Okay, 1 second. There's something in my way, so I can't click on slideshow. 1 sec. Okay, I can move it. All right, great. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the Grace Kennedy Foundation offers, because I think it will give you a guide for what how to approach other companies for scholarships. Okay, so we offer close to 90 scholarships every year. 8 of them are what we call our endowed or named scholarships. So you get a minimum of $400,000 towards your scholarship, towards your tuition. And then we have merit scholarships that start at $50,000. And then we also offer final year scholarships. So for those students who are still trying to figure out how to raise their funds to finish university, we offer scholarships there. And they again range from about $50,000 up. All of our scholarships, once you become a scholar with the Grace Kennedy Foundation, it's renewable. So the only thing that hinders you from renewing your scholarship is maintaining your GPA. And as I'll explain later, you're doing your volunteer hours. So if you go to gracekennedy.com, all the information on each scholarship that we offer is there. So you can figure out how you qualify, if you qualify for the particular scholarship that we're offering. It's an online application. So it's not a printed document that you're going to submit to us. Applications open May 1 and close July 15. At the time when we set this date, it was because CAPE ended around the end of May. With what's happening right now with S.T.A.G.E and what they're doing, I get the impression exams might actually be in July. But it doesn't matter, because what we will do is assess you on your CAPE 1 results. And then when you get your CAPE 2 results, you just submit those to us. We require anybody who is on our program to maintain a minimum of a 3.0 GPA. Other than that, cannot be renewed. And then you also do 60 volunteer hours per year, and you become a member of our Campus Connect program, which I'll explain later. So for the endowed or named scholarships that would apply to engineering students, we have the Grace Kennedy Jamaica Scholarship, specifically for UE students, valued at $550,000. And that is for students who have just completed their CAPE 2 exams. So you can't be already in university, you have to be just starting university to qualify. I must tell you, all of our scholarships are very, very competitive. So if you do not have 1s and maybe a couple 2s, you will not qualify. It's that competitive. So you really have to go after good grades. We have the GK Utec Scholarship. I'm sorry, I should have filled that in. It's valued at $450,000, doesn't apply in this case, but we do offer that scholarship. We have the Douglas O'Rain Scholarship for Science, Technology, or Engineering, and that's valued at $400,000. We have the Carlton Alexander Scholarship, which is specifically for persons who have attended Jamaica College, and that's valued at $500,000. We have the Bruce Ricketts Scholarship, which is specifically for KC Pass students, and that's also valued at $500,000. And then we have the JIEE Final Year Scholarship, again, specifically for students studying STEM at UE or Utec, and that's valued at $500,000. And then, as I mentioned, we have our final year scholarships to students attending UE and Utec, and that will range, as I said, from $50,000 up. We really look at your circumstances to figure out what your needs are. And the thing about our scholarships is I think we go beyond what we need to, because we really figure out, do you need it for boarding? The other thing we do is, because we know that for engineering students, you need to raise at least 1.5 million a year, we know that you may have to get other scholarships. And UA has had a rule in the past where you can't have 2 major scholarships. So we are willing to accommodate that because we know you're trying to add up all the money that you can to be able to cover your tuition and your living expenses. So who can apply for a merit scholarship? So let me tell you what happens is we do in-person interviews for all of our scholarships, except our, well, put it this way, for some of our merit scholarships, we just assess where you're at. But for those who are going after the name scholarships, which is the big money, which is what you really want to go after, you do an in-person interview. Of course, with COVID, it's an in-person interview on Zoom. But if you are interviewed for one of our scholarships and you do not, you're not selected as a winner, 95% of the time, persons who have been interviewed also get assistance. They get a merit scholarship. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes a merit scholarship is almost at the same value as the winner. Because again, we look at your circumstances. Our scholarships are not need-based, they are merit-based. So it's based on your academic performance. But of course, we will have to assess financially where a student is at. If you're a strong student, you've done well, but you can barely make ends meet, we're going to be looking at your circumstance to see how we can help. So that's why it says, anybody who applies for a scholarship could be considered for a merit scholarship. If you're shortlisted for an interview, you could be considered for a merit scholarship. And of course, even if you've applied for one of our scholarships and you're in final year, you will be considered for a merit scholarship as well. So let me tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. So one of the things that we've recognized is that we don't want to just give scholarships and say, bye, see, we really want to help you to be the best person you can be. And also to be aligned to Grace Kennedy, to be able to really understand what the company is about, and hopefully when you graduate to be considered for employment with the company. So we have developed something called the GK Campus Connect program, and that's really a way to connect you to the group. We expect all of our scholars to do volunteer hours, and because of COVID, we've actually modified it. So Donoy Hartley, who's on the committee that planned this event, part of his hours are for his leadership role on the committee. So we're trying to combine the way that you do your volunteer hours. But another way that you can support and do your volunteer hours is we've developed a program called ACE with Grace. And it's specifically to provide homework assistance and tutoring assistance for primary up to high school, up to university actually, students. Because those of you who are on our scholarship program are the brightest and the best in the faculty. And we want you to use the skills that you have developed through high school and through university to support other people and to give back in that way. So I'll have that tutoring program going. The other thing we have is our food bank. And our food bank is what is designed to support university students who may be facing food insecurity. Now, food insecurity is a nice word for hunger. Many university students, particularly those on the full fee paying program like engineering, it is very difficult to find a tuition and then have to find food. And you don't want to drop out of university, so your priority is tuition. We have students who are drinking cough medicine to get the sugar in the cough medicine to just survive through the day. We have students living on the mango trees. Mango season is coming. Plenty of students are going to just rely on mangoes to be able to eat. And so the food bank allows persons who are struggling to find healthy meals to be able to get a package every month with wonderful tinned items from Grace Foods to be able to support them, to help to sustain them a little bit better. And our volunteers also support and volunteer at the food bank. So let me just share this video with you. Oh, I'm gonna have to stop sharing and click on this again. I want to just share a video about why it's important to prepare for your scholarships, for your scholarship interviews. All right.
Ready to apply for college scholarships? That's great, but maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by the process. Not to worry. Let's break it down into 4 simple steps. Step 1. Get organized. Set up a system to track your progress, a spreadsheet, notebook, or calendar. Then build backwards, starting with the final due date and including deadlines for recommendation letters, essay drafts, and the date by which you need to request school transcripts. If you organize everything now, you won't have to cram the day before the application is due. Step 2. If you know you need letters of recommendation, start asking people who know you and who can speak to your work to write them for you. Remember, you want to seek out teachers, counselors, and former employers. Friends and family members can't write your letters. Step 3. Get working on your essay. Careful, you can't submit the same essay for every application. But this doesn't mean you have to write each one from scratch. Tailor your essays to suit each organization offering scholarships. Ask a friend or teacher to read over your drafts. Step 4. Proofread everything. And don't miss deadlines. Scholarship committees are looking for ways to cut down the hundreds of applications they have to read through. No need to make it easy for them to disqualify you by making careless mistakes.
Okay, great. I'm not going to go into too much more detail because there are other speakers that will be talking about this, but it's really important that you prepare. You have to research on all available scholarships early. Money is tight. UE is struggling financially to provide the kind of support that they would like to, or they have in the past. So you really need to be proactive and looking up for all the possible scholarships, applying early. You need to make sure that your birth certificate and all the other documents, your CXC certified documents, everything is in order. You need to be aware of all deadlines. The thing about our online process is at midnight on the 15th of July, it closes. Too bad, you can't apply 1 minute after midnight. So you need to have prepared properly and submitted everything. And of course, get your recommendations early. For those of you who are coming into university, you need to get the teachers who like you, who know you. If them don't like you at this point, build a relationship with them all over Zoom or whatever. Well, I guess the sixth formers are going into school. Build a relationship. Find the person who will write good things. When we get a generic recommendation like John Brown goes to this school, he has been a participant of this club, blah, blah, and it's just generic, I can tell that person hasn't, built the kind of relationships they need, and they've not made the effort to find a person that needs to give them a great recommendation. You are competing for money. You're competing to be interviewed. You need to make sure that your application is clean. There are no typos, none of those things, and that your recommendation letter is the bomb. That, when I read that letter, I'm like, I have to interview the student. And you need to be careful even of the email address that you send to us. Send your application in. I remember one person sent me an application and it was from S.T.A.G.E at Yahoo. And I was like, well, S.T.A.G.E is out, because that's just disrespectful and unprofessional. So think about, create an email address that has first name, last name. It's easy to source, easy to find, and there's no connotations because of the name that you've used. Remember, there are a lot of other scholarships that you can apply for, which you'll learn about, I'm sure, more from other speakers. And I'm not going to go into anything else, but just to say, and I think you're going to be spoken to about this as well, that for somebody studying engineering, you are, as I mentioned repeatedly, you are going after different sources of funding to pull it all together. For those of you who are afraid of getting a student loan, it's like, I need a good example. It's like you going, the doctor says you're diabetic and you refuse to take the medication. You need the student loan. You need to have a backup plan that will just, in case of anything, you can always write to the Student Loan Bureau and say, I'm sorry, I've gotten $1 million scholarship or a $1.5 million scholarship. I do not need the loan, but you must have that in place just in case, because you never, see, on this list has Earn and Study. Earn and Study hasn't taken place in the last year. Students haven't been able to travel because of COVID. Students relied on that to earn extra money to pay their tuition. So therefore, you need to have your backup plan, and I can't stress it more. Get the student loan. Go after it, apply for it. Don't make excuses. Don't be worried about the interest rate. You need to get the money to be able to finish your degree. And of course, student loan debt is rough, but you do what you have to do. All right, I'm going to stop here because I don't think I need to go into anything further. I must say I was actually supposed to be at the end of the agenda, but I have a staff meeting at Grace Kennedy that I have to attend. And I apologize for kind of messing up the way the schedule is. But I thought maybe, Ashley, you can let me know, can people ask questions if they wish now, or because I'm going to have to log off at 3.
Yes, guys. So if you have any questions for Mrs. Mahfood, please feel free to ask them right now. I'll give you like a 3-minute window. You can just raise your hand and indicate to me if you have a question. All right, I'm not seeing anyone so far.
Looks good. I guess I was clear.
I actually, I'm trying to find the raise hand feature. May I go ahead, Ashley?
Oh yeah, you can go ahead. And then Nicole, you can go ahead after.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the icon either. I was looking for it quite well.
Okay.
All right, my apologies. Sorry, Miss McPherson. Could you either reiterate or get into a little bit more what you mean by merit? You know, what are you
Sure.
looking for within the, the whole merit-based system?
Okay. So merit, So basically, it's based on your academic performance and your leadership, and your community service. We're looking at all aspects of that. So the last thing we look at is need. We look at all of those qualities first and characteristics. We shortlist based on that. So the first thing we're looking at when we shortlist is what your CXC and CAPE grades are like. Then we're looking at the leadership and all of those things. And then, like I said, the last thing we look at is need. So merit is based on your performance to date. Does that help? Is there anything else you want me to explain, Rasheen?
No, man, that's it. Thank you so much.
I think he's good. Can applications be made before you receive an acceptance letter? I'm not sure. We require you to upload your acceptance letter. I would assume you would get an acceptance letter by the time you apply. I'm not sure if engineering is waiting on CAPE grades, CAPE 2 grades. Maybe that's the case. And if that's the case, you can just write to us. You just upload a blank document and send us an email to say, I haven't received my acceptance letter. But I'm an amazing student, so I know I'm going to get in, whatever. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? But most students get their acceptance letter before, by the time our application process starts. Okay, you're asking about competition. So I would say, as I said to you, if you're coming into university, if you're just coming in from CAPE, you need minimum 1s and 2s. Very rarely is anybody going to get one of our named scholarships with a 3. Rare. In fact, most of them have all 1s. And by the way, we are aware with all that's happening with CAPE and with COVID that there's some crazy grades. So, we are assessing things based on all the COVID, stuff that's happening. If you're a UE student and you're already in the system, I would think you'd have to have about a 3.5 or above to probably be shortlisted. But again, I tell you, we look through every application. We look at your grades. Sometimes what we find is that there's a student who has excellent CAPE grades, and then, their first year was kind of rough adjusting. And for many of you, even adjusting with online schooling, and, engineering is a hands-on degree, and then, you're at home doing it all. We really assess your situation, and if we think that you have the potential, we are going to consider you, even when sometimes the GPA isn't what it should be. It definitely has to be over 3.2.
Okay, well, one more question. If anyone has a question, we'll take one more.
The only thing I would say is that it would be interesting to get a 1-minute feedback from maybe Danoy to share what his experience has been like. he could, that might help people to understand what it's going to
The noise actually.
Oh, he's not there?
He's here, but he's not here. He's giving blood right now. So
oh dear. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
Well, I
but
hope this has helped.
Yes, but the students can contact Denoy if they need to. And if no one else has any other questions, I would just like to thank you, Mrs. Mahfood, for your presentation today. Thank you for telling us all about the GK Foundation scholarships that students. Thank you for the tips that you have given to us that we can use for other scholarship applications. And we just thank you overall for your presence. Thank you for the shift and being here. And of course, your token will be, well, we're sorting it out and we'll let you know when it can be made available to
I
you.
don't need a token. It's fine.
Okay, well, thank you.
That's no problem.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. No problem. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to, okay, so that was our first speaker for today. We thank Mrs. Mahfood for that wonderful presentation. And the next speaker for today, Glacia, I saw your question and this speaker will be able to answer it for you as, oh no, oopsie daisy. As our next speaker is Mr. Richard Palmer. He's an educator and he will be focusing on how to write your scholarship essay. So, Mr. Palmer, would you like me to share your presentation or would you like to share it?
You can go ahead and share it.
Okay.
All right, so as Ashley said, I'll be speaking to you about how to write your scholarship application, and we'll be zeroing in on how it is that you're going to ensure that your scholarship application, in the pile of applications, that your application essay especially is one that stands out. So you should be seeing the screen. All right, so we're gonna go to the next one, the next slide. So Mrs. Mahfood would have alluded to this point, that applying for a scholarship is really a competition, and whether or not you're consciously aware or you're unconscious about the fact, it is actually a competition that you're putting yourself in. You are indeed competing with other persons from similar faculties, maybe different faculties. And so you have to be thinking about how it is that everything that you're doing in your application, how is it that you're going to make them stand out? So Mrs. Mahfood spoke about recommendation letter, for example. How is it that you're going to get the good recommendation letters that are going to set you apart from somebody else who's applying for the same scholarship? And so we're going to be looking at how you're going to do this with your essays. All right, so the next slide. So this is also another quick fact. I'm not sure many persons, you might not be aware, but this is just to ring home the point that all submitted applications will go through a screening process. And at the end of the screening process, your applications, generally they're graded, and for some companies, they're ranked. So it's a competition, as we said, and so they're looking at everything. You need to ensure that it's well put together because it's a competition. At the end, it's going to be graded, it's going to be ranked, and you want to ensure that at the end of it, you are selected for a scholarship or selected for an interview that will therefore land you the possibility of getting the scholarship. So next, we're going to look at presentation. So you can have really great expectations from scholarships, and then you put in little work in terms of preparing your scholarship application, and especially your essay. First impressions, they do last, and so you have to be careful of how it is that you present, for example, your essay. What are you writing your essay on? Is it on a piece of paper? Are you writing it by hand? Are you following conventional writing styles? So do you have paragraphs? Do you have sentences, not just long words or thoughts, just continuous prose running? How is it that you're presenting your essay? It's very important. And so I'm going to go into 4 steps that I think will help you to clearly understand the process of how it is that you're going to get your essay to be a standout. So essays for scholarships, I think we need to consider them as academic pieces, because these really help scholarship organizations draw impressions from how it is that you express yourself. So maybe you've written a wonderful essay and how you've used the language is very impressive, that the company might ask you to even move the vote of thanks when they're doing the award ceremony. They may ask you to introduce the guest speaker. So you really need to pay attention to how it is that you're writing on your scholarship application. So we're zeroing now on your essay, and this is a proposed timeline for how it is that you're going to get your scholarship essay to stand out. So there are 4 phases, and the first phase includes reading and interpreting the topic. Now, this is very important. Mrs. Mahfood would have spoken to different types of scholarships. Merit-based, it could be financial need. And so you have to pay attention to what the question is asking you. Is this question asking you to write an academic or an academically inclined piece of work? Or is it just asking you for, okay, tell us about your career goals. Tell us about yourself, or tell us about, your financial struggles. You really need to understand, what is this topic about? What is this question requiring me to do? Because very often we see what people do, especially for scholarships, we think, okay, it's a needs-based scholarship. So if I just write about my problems, I'm from a single parent family, I'm poor, I'm from a volatile area, this will land me the scholarship. As Mrs. Mahfood said, not all scholarships are looking for needs-based, and so you have to be careful of how it is that you're writing your essays, or what it is that you're writing, having not read and interpreted the question or the topic of the essay correctly. And then we move into phase 2. So you've read the topic and you've interpreted it correctly. You now want to do your research and also plan. In your research, you want to ensure that, what am I looking for? What is the question asking me to put on in this essay? And then you get to researching. Is it that you need to research a topic? Is it that is an academic piece that you need to write, that you need to get some facts, you need to get some statistics? There are some essays that do exist of that nature when you're looking for some really high stakes scholarship. So is it one of those scholarships that I really need to go out and do some research to get statistics and information to put into the essay? Or is it that, I just need to reflect on my personal experiences, my career goal, and so on, in order to come up with what I'm going to put in this essay? And then you also need to plan. So typically would put, different parts of the essay. You need your introduction, you need your points, so your different paragraphs, you need a conclusion. So you plan how it is that you're going to write. Another interesting thing I always try to do, especially in my writing for different scholarships that I've accessed during my time in tertiary education, I try to find out, for example, is there a slogan? Is there something that stands out from this organization that I could use in my essay? So for example, if I was ever writing a scholarship essay for example, NCB, and it is asking you to write about how it is that, the scholarship would benefit you. Now, NCB has a tagline that says, put your best life forward. That is something that if you're researching enough, you'll find out this is their slogan. Maybe when I'm writing, I can include it in there. Okay, I think that this scholarship would help me to put my best life forward. This is something when somebody is reading it from NCB, they're going to say, okay, yes, this person went ahead, they went out, they found out what our tagline was, they found out what our tenets were, or etc. And they used it, not just at any random point, but it was strategically used, right? So for example, you're writing to Supreme Ventures, you're not going to just state the latter slogan, oh, break out of brokenness. I want the scholarship to break out of brokenness. That might not be the best one to put in that scenario. But there are some slogans and there are some taglines that different companies use that you can use in your essays to show that you've done your research and you are employing the company tenet or the company slogan when you are now writing your essay. And so you've researched and you've planned. Next, we're going to move on to phase 3, which is when you actually write the essay. And so in writing your essay, again, as I said earlier or alluded to, you need to pay attention to some conventional writing styles. So how is it that you're organizing the essay? Do you have an introduction? If it is that is very academically inclined, do you have a thesis statement? You want to look at things like grammar, punctuation. Those are very, very important. Again, you submit an application. This is for a tertiary level scholarship. The assessors are expecting you to have a good command, some control. You can demonstrate that you have command and control over how you use the English language. So capitalization of words in sentences, that's very important. Using punctuation marks, very, very important. You need to ensure that you're spelling the words correctly. And so all of this contributes to how it is that you're going to make the essay really wow the panel when they're looking through it. You also need to pay attention to how it is that you're presenting the essay. Again, what are you writing it on? Are you typing it? Are you handwriting it? Do you have legible handwriting? You don't want to just put your ideas in just this flowing prose. You really want to sit down and put some thought and put some organization into the essay when you do write it. And the final phase is phase 4. Here you finish writing the essay. You need to ensure that you proofread it. This is very, very important. Oftentimes we write, and even if we read it, we tend to read what we think we were writing, right? Because we have the prior knowledge, we have the ideas in our head. And so even if you're reading it for yourself, you're understanding it because you wrote it. If someone else reads it for you, then they might be able to show you that this doesn't make much sense. Maybe you could change this sentence. Maybe you could change a word. Maybe you could put this in the beginning, then put this in the end. It will really help you with how the sequencing and just the general look and feel of the essay when someone else is going through it. So that's very, very important. And so these are the 4 steps, I believe, that if you follow them, you should be able to get a substantial and a really good essay that is going to, wow your panel and also put you in the running for one of the scholarships that you are applying for. And so with that, this is the end of my presentation on how it is that you can actually get your scholarship essay to stand out. Part of my philanthropic efforts, I do help people to proofread essays. So if you ever need someone to proofread your essay, my email address is there and my handle on social media. You can reach out to me if I'm available. I can take a look at what you've written and give you some tips on how you can improve it. So that's my commitment. If you are interested, you can take me up on the offer. But that's it. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. If we can take any questions, actually let me know.
Okay, guys, so the question segment will actually be after our other 2 speakers. Okay. So please write down your questions and just hold on to them. Yes, so Mr. Palmer, you're not leaving anytime soon, correct?
No, I'll be here.
Awesome. So after our 2 presentations, you will be able to feed your questions to the remaining 3 speakers. Okay, with that being said, we are going to keep going. All right, so our next speaker, so some of you may know him. He is Mr. Siobhan Williams. He is one of our past UWI Guild of Students presidents, and he will be here to talk to you about acing your interview, whether it's a scholarship interview, a job interview. He's here to provide you he's here to present on this topic. So Mr. Williams, do you need to present your screen?
Hi, everyone seeing me?
Yes, we're seeing you.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siobhan Williams. I'm currently a resident advisor at ELR Towers, and I am also the manager of investment and promotions at the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority. So we just heard a wonderful presentation about writing your dream application. Now, once it is that you have that dream application made and submitted, you get your interview. When you're sitting down in the room with that person, there's one thing that you have to remember. At this time, they've already seen your grades, they've already seen your application letter, they've already ranked you or graded you. You're already there in the room. So no amount of attributes from your regular interface in school will help you. What they want to hear about now is about you. So whether you're in a scholarship interview or you're in a normal work interview, remember, it's a conversation. They just want to talk to you. They want to find out who you are, because who you are will determine if you get the job or the scholarship. So for scholarships, people want to find out who you are because they're going to be betting on you. They're going to be investing in you. Say, for instance, somebody wants to purchase stock. They're going to read everything that they can about that stock, and they're going to want to know that stock in and out, because that is an investment. If somebody is going to hire you for a job, they want to know the type of person they're going to be working with, because you could have the highest grades in the school. You could be on the dean's list from first year all throughout graduation. You could have graduated with a first class honor, but your people skills are lacking, and the type of emotions that you give off is not appealing to the team, then it won't make sense. I can't hire somebody who's not a team player. I can't hire somebody who doesn't know how to work well with others. You understand? Because at the end of the day, it's really the team that gets the job done, not the individual. And you may be able to do your part well, but you fail when it comes on to passing it on. So let me just get into some tips. We have about 15 minutes to speak, so I'm not going to take too long, but let me just get into some tips about interviewing. Firstly, you have to be punctual. Now, we know sometimes when we go to class, we might say, all right, at Jamaica, so teacher now gonna start on time exactly, but when you're going for your interview, you have to ensure that you are early. If your interview is at 9:30 and you're there for 9:30, then you're late. Ensure that you're there at least 10 minutes ahead. If you know that the place is 20 minutes away, ensure you leave out an hour ahead of time. Because 1, you might end up in traffic. 2, something might happen on the road. 3, God forbid the car breaks down or something, but you should always be prepared. You guys know Murphy's Law, right? Everything that can go wrong, will go wrong. So you have to ensure that you plan. Be punctual. Be there ahead of time. It's important also that you dress appropriately. When you get into the room, they should wonder if you're the one doing the interview or you're the one taking the interview. If you're going to wear a jacket, wear a tie. If you're going to wear a shirt like this, wear a tie. Ladies, you dress well, no jeans, don't reveal too much skin. You can wear a nice little jacket or a cover-up, but nothing too form-fitting, should I say. But ensure that you are dressed modestly and you're dressed in anything that you would imagine yourself wearing on the normal 9 to 5, right? Ensure that you dress for success. Thirdly, it's important that you make a good impression. How do you make a good impression? When you walk into the room, there are a few things that you have to do. You walk in, you greet everyone in the room, and prior to COVID, you shake everyone's hand. Now, if you're doing a physical interview, you can just elbow. But it's important that you acknowledge everyone in the room if you're doing a physical interview, after which you wait on them to tell you to sit down. This shows that you have certain knowledge of the practices within the working environment. And this goes a far way within your tenets. I'm going to tell a small story, right? I got a scholarship to come here to the University of the West Indies. Everyone had to submit a business plan. We had to submit our resumes, cover letters, all the normal. Everything was great. I was up against some of my best friends, to some people who were brilliant, excellent speakers, excellent in their co-curriculars, all around good guys. However, when I went into the interview, all of us did the same exact thing. All of us sold ourselves and we did everything to the best of our abilities. We were all extraordinary. However, what stood out, what gave me the edge, when I was leaving the room, I acknowledged everyone in the room by their names. I shook everyone's hand. I left them with a small message and then I left. About 2 weeks later, I was told that this was one of the most nail-biting processes that they've been through. And they said everyone was exceptional and they're sorry they couldn't have given all 5 of us. But what really made us stand out was the fact that, or what really made me stand out was the fact that I was able to greet everyone by name. I was able to acknowledge everyone, because that showed that I knew what I'm about, and I knew who it is that I'm speaking to. I see somebody just message saying that they can't hear. Is anyone else having any issues hearing me?
Oh, I'm hearing you.
All right, excellent. All right, so moving right along. When you get into the interview, you're going to be asked a lot of questions, but you can't get flustered. You have to be comfortable talking about yourself, right? Because remember, it's a conversation. In that conversation, I don't want somebody talking to me like a robot. If I say, tell me about your high school life. I went to the Manning School. I was in Form 5Y. I did PE and physics and social studies. I don't want anybody to come to me talking to me like that, because there's no connection there. There's no passion. If you want somebody to take you seriously, you have to connect with them. You understand? The only way you can connect with them is if you know them, which brings me to my other point. Research. For any job, any application, anywhere you're going, for anything at all, any scholarship or for any position all around the world, it's important that you research. And Mr. Palmer just made mention of it. Researching is important. You need to know who it is you're going to speak to, and you need to know why it is that you were chosen to be in the room. So your grades got you so far, but now it's time for you to put some of your theoretical base into perspective now. It's now time to work. For instance, Mr. Palmer mentioned the NCB, putting your best foot forward. That is good to have in the application, but it's good to also use when you're speaking. So they could ask you the question, what would you do if you get the scholarship? And then you could say something like, I plan to use the scholarship to assist me in putting my best foot forward. I will now be able to not only benefit myself and my family, but I'll be able to benefit the nation through using this degree to create new jobs and opportunities for my fellow man, so on and so forth. at the special economic zone, our one of our catchphrases is connecting the dots. So in an interview, you could use that catchphrase by saying, if I'm able to get this scholarship, I will be able to bridge the gap between logistics and supply chain management. I will be able to bridge the gap between the BSc students and those employers who are now searching for active and innovative minds that are able to create new and wonderful, exciting ideas. It all goes to your personality, but you have to know who it is you're speaking to. Now, I mentioned, you have to know why it is that you're in the room. For some scholarships, they are purely academic based. However, for most of them, there is a reason for having scholarships. Each company believes in having their corporate social responsibilities met. This means the scholarship won't be purely academic, it won't be solely needs-based, but it will be made to advance the company or advance the nation. I mentioned also that whomever gets the scholarship now becomes an investment. You become an ambassador for that company. They are now looking at you because you are managing their brand. You have to know what it is their brand is about. Grace, for instance, their brand is about developing others and ensure that you maintain the economy and give back. Their corporate social responsibility includes assisting as many people as they can, not just through giving somebody some money, but through giving employment and educational opportunities. If you're asked a question, it's important that you answer it surrounding the tenets of the business that you are representing. Now, perhaps the most important tip, when it is that you're speaking in an interview, you have to be comfortable. You have to be able to give a flow. That's why everyone should have an elevator pitch. One question that they'll ask without hesitation, tell me about yourself. So when they ask you to tell them about yourself, you must be able to speak on the fly. My name is Bob the Builder. I have a passion in building and creating innovative objects. I love to try new things. I love to work in teams. I have 35 years of experience in the field, working with different forms of teams, and I have traveled all over Jamaica and all over the Caribbean, working with different people of different backgrounds, working on monstrous projects to ensure that we get the job done. Whatever it is, but you should be able to speak about yourself in 1 minute. Everyone needs to ensure that they have that elevator pitch. Now, once it is that you can introduce yourself and keep the audience in that 1 minute elevator pitch, the conversation is yours. You use that 1 minute to guide the conversation into the way how you want it to go. After you introduce yourself, you speak about your attributes and what makes you powerful, what makes you an ideal fit for this scholarship or for this job. And then you can go into your beliefs, your motto, the person who most inspires you, those type of things. And if you are able to guide them along with that elevator pitch, then you would have won the interview. You have to be able to keep that conversation flowing. Some of the questions that they'll ask, as I mentioned, tell me about yourself. They'll ask, why should you get this job? Or why should you get this interview? Why should you get this scholarship? Always be positive. Why should I get this scholarship? Because I believe that this scholarship is a gateway to new opportunities for myself and, again, my family. I may be the first person in my family to get this, yes. But what they want to know is, How will you use the gift that you're getting now to repay them? How will you repay society through getting the scholarship? So then you are expected to say okay, I'm sorry. Somebody asked a question if the interview will not be a one-on-one. Most times interviews are not one-on-one. Most times when you go into an interview room, it will be you and the interviewees, and it's usually a panel. So that would be the HR manager and the person who is directly in charge of your department, and perhaps a senior director for the company. But as I was saying, when it is that you're speaking about why you should get the job or get the scholarship, you should always say, I believe I should get this because I am the most suited for it because of my experience in A, B, and C, 1, 2, and 3, and I can use these experiences to ensure that this reward doesn't go unseen. Say that you are now, through this interview or through this scholarship or through this job, you will be able to give back and do this and do that and motivate others to come and do the same. You will be able to bridge the gap, connect the dots, put your best foot forward, all these things. But you have to make it relate to the company and to their mandate. Let me see, another question that could be asked. Tell me about your biggest downfall. People ask this question because they want to see if you're human. They want to see if you're lying. Most people believe that during an interview, they should put their best foot forward and they should give all of the great things about themselves. However, when you're on the job, everything won't go well all the time. You will have challenges. And when presented with a challenge, what's important is that you're able to find a creative solution to work around it. So they want to know what challenges you have had in the past and how you overcame it, because that speaks to your character and it speaks to what we are trying to find out. If we have an issue in the authority, will you be able to resolve it? Or does the supervisor always have to come and tone it down? It's important that we acknowledge that we're human and that we make mistakes. What is your biggest weakness? My biggest weakness is that I tend to overwork myself. I tend to put too much enthusiasm in what it is that I'm passionate about. But it shows that you're human. It shows that you have a soft side and you're being truthful. It's a conversation. Remember, everyone's trying to put their best foot forward, but we can't come off as being flawless because then we come off as being fake. You understand? At the end of every interview, if the interviewee will ask you, do you have any questions for them? It doesn't matter if you've done your research and you know every single thing about the company and you know all of the directors and the employees by name. It's important that you leave them with a question. Ask them something. You may ask them why it is they chose this field for their profession. Say that you have a passion in this industry as well. Ask if they have any advice for you or young individuals in your position. But keep the conversation going. You have to connect with them. Now, I don't expect you to be in there telling some slap jokes. But it's important that you connect and you laugh, you be happy in the interview. Remember, in the interview, they're either about to invest in you or bring you in as a part of the team. So they want to know who you are. They want to know if they can work with you. And they can only do that by finding the real you through conversations. So in closing, I just want you to remember that in an interview, we just want to talk to you. Relax. Get comfortable with talking to yourself. Sit down with one of your friends and let them ask you some questions and you speak. Don't sit down and practice to speak verbatim. Be impromptu. If you have a list of 10 questions, find 2 or 3 points per question, and then when you're asked, you can just draw from your knowledge of those questions. But if you attempt to regurgitate exactly what it is that you said in the interview, in the practice interview, then you're going to sound fake. You're going to sound like a robot, and that comes off as being disingenuous. So again, in closing, just remember, be free, be yourself, and just interact. So the questions will be at the end of all presentations, but I hope that you've taken something from my presentation. And if you have any questions, just write them down and I'll be here to answer them later.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. That was very insightful. We're going to keep moving with our program, and we're going to hear from one of our very own. We'll be hearing from Dr. Omar Thomas. Now, he is our Deputy Dean of Outreach, Internationalization, and Marketing from the Faculty of Engineering, and he'll be talking to us about funding my engineering degree at UA Mona.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes, we're seeing the slides.
All right, so welcome everyone to this event. Before I get in, let me just say on behalf of the administration of the Faculty of Engineering, we welcome current students, we welcome our prospective students, high schoolers who may be listening in, and let me also congratulate the Mona Engineering Society, Ms. Ashley McPherson and her team for putting together today's event. So I'm going to speak very briefly, funding my engineering degree at UA. But before I get into that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the different programs, particularly for new students and even current students who may want to further their studies. All right. So we offer 4 undergraduate programs: biomedical engineering, civil, electronics, and electrical power. So biomedical engineering has to do with the application of engineering to the medical field. It involves the design and maintenance of medical equipment and develop treatment solutions. Earlier last year, you would have seen some of our students as well as engineers from the commercial arm working on ventilators and other equipments for the hospital. All right, we also have a lecturer who is working on doing research, how yam can be used to cure cancer. Civil engineering has to do with the design, construction, maintenance, and of the built environment. And so students are taught how to design things like skyscrapers, airports, bridges, highway, drainage structures, water distribution system, and wastewater treatment system. Electronics engineering, all right. So that has to do with the design of electrical components. And so students are exposed to telecommunication, computer engineering, instrumentation engineering, electrical power control, and robotics. And I must say the electronics engineering is ABET accredited, and we are on track to get the other programs accredited. What this means is that you will get a quality degree at the end of your 3 or 4 years here. Last but certainly not least, electrical power engineering. And so these expose our students to job opportunities such as power systems, power generation, distribution and transmission, renewable energy systems, and power control systems. And for our current students, we now have a MSc in Engineering and Management, engineering, physics, maths, or computing. All right, so let me talk a little bit about our scholarship and funding opportunities. So, of course, our current students would have known that our program is 10,000 US per annum. For prospective students, do not let this amount create fear in you. I must say, when we Mr. Palmer and Mr. Williams, I endorse their presentation as well. Now, for persons entering the prelim engineering program, there's a 30% tuition bursary available to you once you're Jamaican, and once you apply, it's almost guaranteed that you'll get it. Now I'm going to get into talking about a list of scholarships. Thanks to Ms. McPherson and her team, a wider database of scholarships have been created, and they are currently on our website. I just have a few listed here. First, we have the Mst Vet Scholarship. Now, this scholarship is given through the Ministry of Education. Now, let me give a little bit of background for this scholarship. This scholarship was put together because the government of Jamaica really wants to build the technical and the capacity as it relates to engineering in Jamaica, so that they can bring in technology companies or companies that require engineering. So they want to build that base currently. And so these scholarships are offered to all the universities in Jamaica that offer engineering, but they are particular to each university. So the Mona School of Engineering, well, the Faculty of Engineering has a certain quota of scholarships. All right. Last 2 years, we have gotten over 20 or more scholarships, students getting this each year. And so I encourage students to really apply, because the thing with government and even private organizations, if they do not get a full take up this year, next year they're going to cut the quota, or they may cut the quota. All right. So Mst Vet Scholarship, that's a very good scholarship to apply for. It's full tuition, full boarding. And the only thing is that you need to stay in Jamaica 5 years or work in Jamaica, give back to your country for 5 years upon graduation. I think that's a small price to pay for such a beautiful scholarship. There are other scholarships, such as the New Fortress Energy Scholarships, the Jamaica Flour Mill Scholarships, that really are geared to giving engineering students that chance. And as Mrs. Mahfood would have said, the Student Loan Bureau do not rule out taking a student loan from the Student Loan Bureau. In my undergrad, I took it out for 1 year. Fortunately, I only had to take it out for 1 year, but it's an investment in your future. And I believe the Faculty of Engineering has a preferential rate for student loan and a preferential amount, because it's higher than the UGC funded courses. All right. Well, our current students know about our student clubs, but for the new students, you know, that is something to look forward to when you come in. Now, for those of you who have your degrees, or those of our current students, you can look into doing your Master of Science in Engineering Management, and the full-time tuition is $8,100. But because it's a professional master's, we allow persons to do it part-time at $450 per credit. Now, let me talk a little bit about the scholarships. Excuse me. So there are two websites. So we have the Faculty of Engineering website here, and I think you should be seeing it. So you want to go under resources and scholarships and bursaries. All right. And we have made it easy for you. We have a list of scholarships here. So Ms. Mahfood spoke about the Grace Foundation scholarships. If you click apply, you will see more detailed information, how to go about doing that. All right. We also have the, pardon me. Sorry about that. We also have the other scholarship for the Office of Student Financing. All right. And we want to look at that as well. So as that come up, there it is. So, you know, it may take a little while for you to go through all the different scholarships, but you know, it's funding opportunity. All right. So there's a total list of scholarships available here that you can check. All right. Grace Foundation. I know the Jamaica Flour Mills is here. Now, some of the scholarship deadlines may not have been updated for this year as yet. So you just have to keep checking to make sure that, you know, when it's updated, you are well in line to take it. Now, so our previous speakers have spoken about, you know, how you present yourself to the panel, right? And how you present yourself when you do scholarship applications. And that's very important. I too, in my position, have sat on scholarship application panels, particularly the one from Ministry of Education. And as reviewers, we want to know, how are you going to give back to society, or are you going to give back to your country? All right. And so you want to have these things in mind before you go to the interview. All right. So just to say, there are a lot of scholarship opportunities out there. All right. Do not be afraid to apply for them. Take your time, research, and see what is required, and send out your feelers. All right. Send out your feelers. And I wish you all the best, both prospective students and our current students. Wish you all the best in finding that extra resource so that you can complete your degree. That's it for me today, unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Before we take any questions on your presentation, I would just like to invite Mr. Kimani Anderson. He'll be doing our thanks and regards to our first set of speakers.
All right, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, great. All right, so it gives me the utmost pleasure to be the one thanking the speakers, of which we've had 4 so far. So that's Dr. Thomas, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Williams, and Mrs. Mahfood. All going over the different steps in funding our education, from writing the essay to acing the scholarship interview, and even Dr. Thomas just went over where you can find all of these scholarships online. So I'd like to thank them for their time out of their busy days to just come and talk and educate us on how to approach funding our education here at the University of the West Indies, because engineering is not cheap, and we definitely would benefit from reducing that cost. So, you know, they've done a fantastic job on informing us so far. And our listeners online, I'm sure, are jotting down notes, making sure, hoping they're taking down the websites to go to, just to score a better chance at gaining a scholarship. So on behalf of everybody here at the University of the West Indies and the 6 formers that are listening as well, I'd like to thank Dr. Thomas, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Williams, and Mrs. Mahfood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. And now, before we move on to the second segment, we have our question portion. So I think you guys would have jotted down your questions. So you can let me know. All right, so we have Mickey here with the question from Mr. Palmer. When greeting the panel, do you greet them individually or all at once?
I think that was a question for Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Right. So when greeting the panel, you greet them individually. If you go into the room and you say, "Hey all," then it doesn't seem personal. You're not connecting. And remember that the purpose is to have this being a conversation. Have them know that you know who they are so that they can know who you are. You greet everyone by name when you walk into the room.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Diana K. Taylor. Anyone has a question, you can raise your hand. I think Tanya would have showed you where the function is to raise your hand. Or you can just state it in the chat that you have a question. Is it that you guys forgot your questions? Or that the presentations were so good that you don't have any questions to ask? Okay, Mickey, again, I think this question is for Mr. Williams. How do you minimize nervousness and maintain a good persona?
All right, good question. So I think everyone gets nervous from time to time, and that's normal. That just means that, you know, you're human. Even managers and directors get nervous when they have to make a big presentation. But how do you actually get over it? Do so by practicing. You ensure that you are prepared. If you have to make a big presentation, ensure that you have your notes written down so that you can just use it as a guide. If you're making an appeal to someone or doing an interview, then just have the information that you know you're going to speak about. You know that you're going to speak about yourself, right? So you're going to want to have some points jotted down that you want everyone to remember, such as your tenets, your stance on life, your motto, things that you believe in, your values, achievements that you've done that relate directly to the company. So as long as you prepare, you should be fine. And you can, as I mentioned in the presentation as well, you can talk to somebody and have them do like a practice interview so that you get more comfortable with speaking.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Diana K would have asked a question for those of you who wouldn't have read it. There are some students currently right now that are doing first year courses, but they still have to do math, pre-math, because they would have not done it in the CAPE level. And she had asked if she'll still be eligible for the bursary, and Dr. Thomas had said yes. So for those of you who don't have pure math right now and you still qualify for the other courses, you can go ahead and do your first year courses, your pre-math, and you can still apply for the engineering bursary. A question for Mr. Palmer. Do you have any experience with graduate level scholarship essay writing?
Yes, I would have responded to him in the chat.
And are there any huge differences or techniques used for preparation?
I think that one belongs to me. So when it comes for preparation, there's not much of a difference.
I'm so sorry. It's for Mr. Palmer. It was like, I'm so sorry. I split it up in two. It's a continuation of the first question.
Okay.
Okay, so you're asking about the techniques for...
Yeah, for graduate level, is there any big differences in the techniques used, or is there anything like a stark difference between the undergraduate and the graduate level type of essays? You know, for me, who is in the graduate scene, I just want to know if there's any big differences in the presentation that you had just made, that I need to tailor to my level of of education.
Okay, well, I think the biggest difference would be, again, the topic of your essay or what you're writing. For an undergraduate versus graduate programs, usually the graduate programs, it's something that's going to lean toward a more academic approach, a more personal approach. And so you want to ensure, what I would recommend if you're writing anything for a graduate level, you need to ensure that you're not writing basically. So you're not using just pedestrian language. You're trying to use to demonstrate that you have a good grasp and command of the English language. You want to use tertiary level language. You want to ensure that you're citing sources, you're giving references, again, depending on what the topic is about. And even if it's a simple topic, tell us about yourself. You want to ensure that you go above using the I was, I am, I. You need to demonstrate that you have a better way, or at a graduate level, you want to demonstrate that there are other ways that you can express the same ideas, not using pedestrian language. So you want to show that you have an elevated level of vocabulary and ways of articulating and expressing even the simplest of ideas. Again, you're a graduate level student. And as again I would have iterated in my speech, it's really important that you treat any form of writing that you're doing for a scholarship as a piece of academic writing. It really sets a tone for you. And even as engineers, so oftentimes the misconception is that, oh, science students don't like to write, they don't like engineer students, they don't like to write. You need to dispel that notion and show to the panel that, listen, I'm an engineering student, but I do know how to show you that I can think critically. And because engineering is a higher order skill, it's not just basic and people look down and, oh, it's a skill, no, it's not. You need to demonstrate that, listen, I might be a scientific student or a science student, but I can demonstrate, that I have good command of English language and I can use it at the tertiary level. And so I think that is very important, or one of the biggest difference between how you would be judged in terms of an undergraduate or somebody just leaving high school versus a graduate level writing.
Wonderful. We have 2 more minutes in, 1 more minute in the question portion. So Dr. Thomas is answering questions in the chat. Is there anyone else that would like to voice their question? Okay, well, if that is it, we can keep going and welcome the second part of our program. If you guys still have questions, you can continue to feed them in the chat, and the speakers are still here. They will answer them for you. They also have put their emails. For those of you who want to speak with Mrs. Mahfood, should have left an email. I would repost if you have any questions specific to the Grace Kennedy Foundation. But we are going to keep going. And this part of our program, as I said, it's also a question from the live. Are all engineering programs accredited? Well, I'll leave that to Dr. Thomas to take care of that one. Okay, so we're going to keep going with our program. For those of our final year students that have been here from the beginning, this one is really more about you. It's more about your transition from final year to whatever it is you're going to do after you graduate from UE. And of course, for our high school students, your first or second year students, it's not too early to start thinking about what you're going to do with your future after you have attained your engineering degree. All right. And so, as I said in the beginning, who better to hear from than our alumni, members of our alumni. And so we have invited 3 speakers from our alumni to just tell us about their experience, what has been happening with them so far. And our first speaker is Mr. Rashane Winter. He's been an active participant so far. He is the current Vice President of the Faculty of Engineering Alumni Association, and he's currently employed at Fluid Systems. So I invite Mr. Winter to take over. The floor is all yours.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to greet everybody, and just to make sure that you all can hear me, let me know. Let me get some participation in chat. You guys can hear me clearly.
Yes, we're hearing you clearly.
I just want to make sure. All right, great. All right. So, my name is Rasheen Winter, as Ashley has so said, and I've been working with Fluid Systems Engineering Limited for about 3 years now. Right. Have I been an active member of the alumni for 3 years? Who knows, right? But right now I am the current vice president, right? And last year I was a PRO, if I remember correctly. Okay, yes, the years go by so fast. Now, just a general introduction. Just I am like a normal Jamaican. Unfortunately, the only thing that's about a little bit different is that I'm an only child, and I was so blessed to have parents that just allowed me to do what I wanted to do. Right. My dad, of course, is a little bit biased towards the science field, so I guess he's happy that I became an engineer than anything else. Right. And so, yeah, other than that, I've been blessed to be able to go through and do what I want. The one thing that had actually led me down this path, right, was that I had an intrinsic love to see things move from paper into reality, right? So that could have been anything with regards to, the artsy side of stuff and so on. But, I took a liking to math, and of course, engineering became that. So that's like in the sixth form days, I was just moving forward towards that. Then fortunately, we had um remind me of his name, or past dean, come and visit Arden High School. And yeah, that's when I just made up the decision that, I am heading to UE engineering. um, and that's just history in of itself. All right, I do have some general questions here. um, are you guys going to ask me the questions, or do I just continue along the side of the questions, Ashley?
You can just continue.
All right, no problem. All right, so I'm going to read them out on my second screen. So that's a general introduction. Do, do you always know that this is where you want to be? Um, yeah, that's highlighted towards just what I from sixth form. I said, yeah, okay, yeah, I want to be an engineer, and so fortunately, I was blessed to be able to get into UE engineering, even though my grades weren't that good in sixth form. But it is what I wanted to do, and I had an idea of that it was engineering. What field of engineering, I wasn't quite sure, but just looking at what I did was with technical drawing and so on, that led me towards having done civil engineering in particular, right? And I did building technical drawing, right? um no, with me working at Fluid Systems Engineering, this was not planned. No, one of the key passion points that I had to become an engineer was that I was totally angry. I wanted to use a jargon there. I was very angry at the Jamaican roads, right? Jamaican roads were the literal driving force to why I decided to become a civil engineer. And so, but then while I was in school in UA, I had fell in love with coastal engineering, right? We had a Dr. David Smith. He was our teacher. And so in the middle of my engineering degree, I had taken a total liking towards going towards fluids, right? And I just realized that I liked the idea of dealing with water. And so fortunately, I had gotten a job, right, with fluid systems engineering, um, in that field of just what we do is we do drainage, we do potable water, and we do sewage, right? So drainage, sewage, and potable water. We do everything there with regards to that. All right. Um, how did I make the choice? Yeah, that kind of covers it. Now, when it comes on to guidance in choosing this field and so on, I would say that Dr. Omar Thomas actually was the one that pushed me towards it. Right, in the final year of civil engineering, we were offered the opportunity to do a certain facet of the final project. Right, and so, for me, I had chosen, water, even though the program itself within UE did not directly speak towards hydraulic engineering, that is, fluid dynamics within pipes, setting up a pipe system and all of that. I took it on myself and he did not stop me. And I have to, I am forever grateful for that. I said that I wanted to do this and he just guided me with regards to certain topics that I needed to cover, any information that I needed to be abreast on. And so that helped me to make the decision and, fully fledged within the decision to become a fluid systems engineer overall. All right. And no, right? Okay, so this question is asking, were I able to start working immediately after completing third year? Not exactly, right? Um, uh, like the president, the current president, I have to say that I was so jealous of him, right? And other fellow peers, right? So that is Demali Cohen, who is the current president of the Alumni Association. I didn't have a job within the field for about 3 to 6 months. All right. And what had actually helped me was that I volunteered. And so for those who don't get a job immediately out of UE, I do tell, don't sit around at home, don't do anything like that. It was actually in my voluntary work at UE, right? So I got a small stipend paid job to do some GPS and GIS work within the UE maintenance section, right? And so I was helping them to locate the pipes within UE, doing all the GPS mapping to try to find these pipes and just try to draw out their system within a digital format. And it was because of that effort, the head of the maintenance actually approached my boss and allowed me to get the job that I have right now, right? Um, and I mean, I have to give God thanks for that, like no doubt. But it is because I did not stay home. I didn't do, just wallow in my jealousy, right? I just went out and just did what I had to do, and that's what happened, right? And I got the job with no interview. So for those, I just want to, that's a little rubbing right there, all right? And lastly, how did I know that this was the discipline of civil engineering that I wanted to do and wanted to purpose? So we can always just backtrack to what I had initially said. I just fell in love with water, right? In the middle of my program. All right. I think we'll just leave questions. You can ask the questions at the end of everything. All right. Ashley, back over to you.
I must say that was a very funny presentation. It was actually very relatable. I feel like one of the reasons why I started because of Jamaica's roots. And like you, where I am right now is not where I started out, honestly, because I wanted to do structures in the beginning, and that's not where I am right now. So thank you for that. Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for letting us know some of the challenges that you would have gone through when you had left. And so we're going to keep moving to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Miss Victoria Grant. So she is self-driven. She's a self-starter, and she's in constant pursuit of personal and professional development. Right now, she is pursuing her master's in the UK. And so we welcome Miss Victoria Grant. The floor is all yours.
Hello, Ashley. Thank you so much to everyone. Again, hello, my name is Victoria Grant, and it's a pleasure to be here. I hope you all find this talk helpful and that everything I say today is things that you guys can relate to, and hopefully it can help you guys to make a decision on your future within engineering. So similar to what Rashane had just gone through, I would just be going through a few general questions as well after I do a brief introduction. So again, my name is Victoria Grant. I'm 25 and I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in soil mechanics and engineering seismology at Imperial College London. And I also did the undergraduate program at UE, where I studied civil engineering. And during my time at UE, I interned with a few places, inclusive of the National Works Agency and Smith Warner International. I graduated in 2017, and I think it took me about a month, and then I had gotten an internship with Jamaica Public Service for about 4 months. And right after that, I got hired by the National Environment and Planning Agency as the civil engineer there. And at NEPO, I worked on a number of different development projects, mostly coastal and environmentally related. But I also got an opportunity to work on a few geotechnical focused projects as well. And I got to review a few general civil works documents like drainage plans and so forth. And I was at NEPO for 3 years. And during my time at NEPO, I had applied to Imperial originally to do fluid mechanics for offshore, coastal, and built environments. And then I decided to switch to soil mechanics and engineering seismology. And then after my switch, I had applied to Chevening and I was successful, thankfully, and now I'm here. So just a few general questions, as I had mentioned before. Did you always know that this is where you wanted to be after graduation, or did your plans change? So I always knew I wanted to do my master's in engineering because just during my undergraduate degree, I was very fascinated with just how much knowledge you could gain from just all of the topics that were touched on, well, in my case, civil engineering. And I knew that I wanted to know more, and I wanted to put myself in a position where I could really make a big impact to society. So I knew definitely doing my master's in engineering was a sure future decision at the time, but I also thought about doing other things like business and project management because those things kind of go well with engineering. And I kind of just had all of those things in my head, but I didn't know when or how I was going to do it. But I think after graduating, my main focus was just getting some industry experience. So I was mostly doing job hunting. And then when I had gotten my job at NEPO, I think because I was a bit confused as to what area of engineering I wanted to specialize in, I was using that time to just observe as much as I could and using the opportunity to work on so many different projects to kind of see what area of civil engineering I wanted to specialize in before I was applying to any school or any scholarships. And I think originally I was more leaning towards doing coastal, and I still do love coastal so much, and a part of me would still love to pursue it somewhere in the future. But while I was at NEPO, I got the opportunity to see how much, I guess, lack of appreciation and lack of importance was placed on the geotechnical side of projects in Jamaica. And it was crazy to me because I think geotech is such an important field. And it was one of my favorite fields during my undergraduate as well. So I think working at NEPO made me realize that that's probably the area that I should focus on going into. And after that, that's when I started to kind of do my school hunting and program hunting, scholarship hunting, and all of those things. In terms of how did you make the choice to do what you are currently doing, I think I kind of already touched on that already. Just to kind of reiterate, you know, because at NEPA we deal with a lot of different local developments. So you get to really see a lot of different disciplines coming into play. So again, just seeing how much lacking of, like, the lack of geotechnical importance placed in some of the projects, that's what I think really drove me to be like, okay, maybe geotech is really a field that Jamaica needs, and it was a field that I also loved. So I decided to say bye to coastal and to go into the soil mechanics route, and then that's when I started to look at Imperial. I always kind of wanted to go to Imperial as well, because during my undergrad, we were fortunate to have been taught by Dr. Smith and Maurice Jones, who Roshane is fortunate enough to work with. But those are two engineers that I looked up to a lot, along with so many others as well. And one of my good friends, Gordon Brown, he also went to Imperial. So I think that kind of drove me to look at that school in particular. And then looking at their programs, I saw that they had a soil mechanics program, and that's what kind of just led me to that specific path, I guess. In terms of me getting guidance to make this decision, I definitely did do consultation with my past lecturers, Dr. Hay in particular, where the geotechnical part was concerned, Dr. Matt Morris, and even Dr. Smith as well. He was encouraging me to do geotech too, even though he's within the coastal side of things. So I did reach out to a number of people for advice, and they were extremely helpful. So I would definitely encourage all of you who may be a bit confused as to what area you want to specialize in, to definitely reach out to as many people as you can, and they will give you some very insightful information. And in terms of any other sources of information, I did my own research as well about what exactly soil mechanics was all about, and the different areas that you could specialize within the field of soil mechanics as well. And I also, as I said, kind of just observed while being at NEPA the different aspects that geotech could have come into play in the different projects. I thought it was really cool. A big one, I guess for my contribution to this talk, is about financing higher education, with, I guess, me being a Siobhan scholar, to just give you guys some advice on how to go about making, you know, the pursuit of your education possible. I guess I'm biased in the sense that I would always encourage people to apply for scholarships, because they are out there and it's not impossible to get. You know, I know they usually have a bond, and some people are a bit afraid to take on something that has, you know, with that bond in mind. But for me personally, the bond doesn't really mean anything, because I feel like if there's any place you want to make an impact, you should start with home, even if you have future plans to maybe work more internationally. I think home is a great place to start. So scholarships for sure. Again, I'm Siobhan biased. I think Siobhan is a great opportunity. I will encourage people to apply. I mean, they have given me one of the best opportunities in my life, because I would have never imagined being here and actually being able to be doing my master's at a school like Imperial. I'm so grateful for them and for what they have been able to allow me to do. But there are other scholarships out there as well. There's the Rhodes Scholarship. I had applied to Rhodes as well before I had applied to Siobhan. There's a Commonwealth Scholarship, and I know if anyone doesn't necessarily want to go to the scholarship route, I know that there are a number of schools that do research topics, for example. And if you want to contribute to this research, it's almost kind of like they hire you in a way. So you're contributing to the research topic that they're doing, and during this process, you're attaining your master's degree. So that is something that you can look into as well. That waives tuition usually, and if you take up other I guess perks, maybe, I don't know if that's the correct term to use, but there's other things that you can apply to do to waive other fees, for example, housing and so forth. If you were to do like teaching assistants or teaching assisting, marking papers and so forth, they usually waive any excess cost, and then you can pretty much do your master's at a very minimum or minimal cost. But again, I'm very pro scholarship. Anyone who's interested in applying, I definitely encourage you to. If you want any specific advice on anything, you guys can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. I don't know if there's anything specific that someone wants to ask, but that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. And I really hope it was helpful. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure listening to you. Your path is not the same as Rashane's, and I feel like some students just need to hear that, we don't always have to just get working right away. There's always, the option of our masters. Of course, you probably won't know what exactly you want to do right away, but that's okay. So the question portion will be after our final presentation. So you guys write down your questions. Don't forget to write down your questions so that they can answer them for you. So our final speaker of today, we have one more speaker, and that is Mrs. Crystal Gail Marsh. Now, she is a CEO and co-founder of Inspire Wealth. And I'd just like to invite her to give us the final talk for today. And then we go right into our question segment.
Hello. Thank you so much, Ms. McPherson. Hello to everyone who is on here. First of all, let me just say that this is an excellent thing that you are doing. I remember when I wanted to start my engineering degree, I wanted all the information that I could ascertain. So for those of you who are already in engineering, kudos to you. And for those of you who are looking to get engaged in Mona School of Engineering, kudos to you as well. So thank you so much to the organizers. All right, so my name is Crystal Gail Marsh, as was mentioned before. I'm 26 years old, and my path is a little bit different, and I will get into that in the latter end of my presentation. But what I want to spend the first half of it doing is just talking to you about my journey at UWI and what pretty much happened throughout that time. All right, so when I started, like a lot of persons, I did not know how I was going to fund my tuition. I remember when I found out it was 10,000 US dollars, that at the time was equivalent to about 1.2, 1.3 million dollars a year. And I'm from very humble beginnings. So when I went home and I told my parents, they're like, man, I don't know what you're going to do. We're going to have to sell the house, sell the trees, sell the dogs, right, in order to send me to school. And that was just their way of saying, man, we don't have any idea what we're going to do. But I'm here to tell you, once there's a will, there's a way. I started school not knowing how my tuition was going to be paid. And I just worked hard. I must be honest, at the beginning, at the first part, I started off as a prelim student because in high school, I didn't actually pursue the sciences. I only did one science, and that was physics. And so when I actually decided to do engineering, upon applying to UWI, I had to go through the prelim program. I saw a few persons asking that question, and I'm better for it because I spent a lot of time, not only that, but because there's a bridge between moving from sixth form into university. And oftentimes I talk about this, but I think not enough, because when I was in high school, I had a very individualistic approach towards school. I felt like if I didn't know, then you didn't either, that sort of thing. And when I graduated and I started UWI, I needed to learn teamwork. I needed to learn that you are your brother's keeper. Two heads are better than one. I learned the power of study groups and so forth. And so prelim really gave me the time to get prepared for what engineering was going to bring. And of course, as I said, it was an upward toil. I must be honest, I applied for every single scholarship there was. And even when there was not a scholarship, I was applying, right? So I was just going through the directory, just looking for persons, looking for, I applied to Lime, I applied to Digicel, I applied to all over. For those of you who are wondering what program I did civil engineering. And so even most of these companies that I applied to didn't really have anything to do with civil, but I just believe that the most or the worst that they could tell me is no. right? And if I could leave that with you guys, just remember the worst that someone could tell you is no. And it doesn't matter that your tuition is $1.3 million a year. If you get $10,000, if you get 1,000 Jamaican dollars, that is something towards your tuition. All right, it's a step-by-step process. And so that was what it was like. Upon graduation, I was blessed enough to actually land a job in my field, and I started to work at PAJ, otherwise known as Port Authority of Jamaica, and I felt like I was on the moon. I must be honest. I was overemployed, I would say, because the things that they asked me to do right upon graduation, I did not have a clue how to do it. And so after work ended at 5 o'clock, I found myself having to go get the books. I had to be online researching, trying to find more information. And that's what I want to tell you guys. Don't worry about not knowing everything from the get-go. All right. Remember, when you graduate, they're testing you on your ability to solve problems. That is what an engineer is when you really break it down to the core. You are a problem solver. And so though you may not have all the answers right there about, you know exactly how to get it. And I can insert a quick joke here. Hopefully you find it funny. I remember doing structures with my cohort, and in class it feels like we're doing ABC 1, 2, 3, and then when you get the exam paper, it's like, hey, this is an apple, this is an orange, what is the mass of the moon? That sort of thing. And so we really had to become very, very resourceful, and you will be paid based on your resourcefulness. And it doesn't matter where in life you go, whether it's engineering or entrepreneurship, your resourcefulness is super important. And I will go on to the next one that pretty much asks me if I knew that what I'm doing right now is what I would be doing, while I was going to school. The truth is no. I was really in love with engineering, but I was in love also with the life that I thought that engineering could provide me. And upon graduation, while I was working at that place, I was in a very volatile environment, meaning it was very violent. I got, just not to turn this into something else, but I got robbed a couple times leaving work, and it was just crazy. It was crazy. And so I started to think about other ways in which I could bring in some income for myself, right? And so I actually went back to school. So I pursued my master's here in the States. I went to And I did engineering management at the time. That was what I was pursuing. But guys, while I was here, remember the first part where I said I'm from very humble beginnings. So if I couldn't fund school there in Jamaica, can you imagine how much of a stretch it was being in the States, now being an international student, where your very status, your very stay depends on you being able to be an actively enrolled student at school. And so I had to find ways in which to make money legally. And that is really how I got into entrepreneurship. All right. Now, while being in entrepreneurship, I did it via the route of trading foreign exchange. I've later went into real estate, drop shipping, some of which I'll touch on a little bit later in this call. But what I wanted to say was that introduced me to purpose. You see, oftentimes we choose things because we want to be compensated for it, maybe because our family members, somebody who we respect a lot, did something. And that was what happened for me. You see, I didn't have a lot of mentors growing up, but I saw what not having money could do. And so I associated myself with a place where I saw growth and I saw progress. And at the time, that was engineering. But later on, I soon realized that engineering is just one way. There's many, many, many different ways. And I'm by no means here discouraging you from continuing what you're doing, by no means, right? So if this is what you want to do, if this is what you're passionate about, by all means, put every single thing that you have into it. But if you see yourself going on to probably into management, I'll tell you something. While I was working at PAJ, absolutely everybody on the board of directors, whether they were lawyers or doctors, they started out in engineering. And I thought that was so cool because, again, at the root, an engineer is just a problem solver. And the more problems you solve is the more money you make. All right. Now, let me continue. So how did I make the choice? I think I kind of answered that already, but then let me talk about the guidance that I got when I got into entrepreneurship. Now, I learned this the hard way, and I'm going to share this with you guys. When you are going to go after something, you have to find someone who is actually successful in that particular field. And this is super important. Oftentimes we take advice and we take recommendations from persons who we like and trust, but this person that you like and trust may very well not be in the position that you want to. Now imagine, I want to start something in entrepreneurship. I want to be my own boss. I wanted to launch off and do my own thing. It was impossible for me to get that type of advice from persons who were still in a 9-to-5 setting, right? And so oftentimes when I shared my ideas with people who, my peers, my friends, they'd be like, hey, that sounds a little bit crazy. And so I had to surround myself with like-minded individuals. Now, the very same thing goes for you guys. If you're thinking about, let's say you want to launch off into real estate, that's something that you want to do. Find a real estate mentor. Mentorship is super, super important in any aspect of life. You want to be a good engineer. You want to, let's say you want to do geotechnical engineering, as I saw Victoria's. Congratulations to you as well, Vicky. But yes, so if you want to do something like that, find a mentor in geotechnical engineering, right? And it's always better to learn the right way than to unlearn the wrong way. And so what I did, I started to consult books. I started to talk to anybody that would listen pretty much, and just to find out what it is that they did in order to get to where they are. All right. And so that's something that I think would have been super, super beneficial to you guys, especially coming up right now, just to start seeking mentorship, start asking the right questions. All right. And think about these questions, because sometimes you're just one answer away from your breakthrough. You could be wanting to accomplish something, but because you're not asking the right questions, you're still in the same position that you were at a former time. All right, let's talk some more. So is my business related to engineering in any way? I'd have to say not really, right? But as I said, engineering for me is just being a problem solver. And so every single day I'm faced with different things, different challenges in my business, that engineering has really, really helped me to be like, I don't get flustered at problems. And you guys will see that the minute you end your bachelor's, or you finish studying engineering, you're going to find that it's going to be so easy for you to solve problems, because you have been faced with it and your brain is now targeting solutions. All right. A lot of things that is wrong with our society is the fact that people present a problem to every solution, right? But we are the opposite. We are solution seekers. We're the solution makers. All right. And would I recommend entrepreneurship? Absolutely. But I can tell you, it's not for everybody. There is a different road for everyone. I'm seeing my persons who were in my cohort, both Shane and Victoria, are in the same year that I was. We all sat in classes together, and all three of us are in different places of our life. Shane is still employed. Victoria is gone on to her master's. I have actually switched my focus to entrepreneurship. And so that is the bottom line. You have to be honest with yourself and just see where you're at and see what type of value can you add to society. A very big thing that I actually want to leave with you guys is this. All right. Remember, if you want anything at all to change in your predicament, right? So if you are coming from a family maybe where you are the first person to go to university, you're the first person to get this type of education, you're the first engineer in your family, then you have done something great and you should push through, because there's somebody who needs to see you on that graduation podium. There's somebody who's waiting on you to succeed just to believe that they can do it too. And the second thing is just remember that service to many leads to greatness. All right, service to many leads to greatness. When I just started school and I was going through, I told you I had a very individualistic approach. I didn't understand what it was working in teams. I didn't understand that two heads were better than one. And I was blessed enough to have friends who are friends, even to know, right? Who were able to, let's study together. Let's spend time. I remember having projects, guys. If you guys are just coming in, this is not to scare you. This is the reality. I remember having projects where we said, okay, so we're going to be done at 7 o'clock. Then we're going to go home and revisit it tomorrow. And we were sitting there from 10 in the morning to the following day at 10 o'clock, still trying to finish these projects rather. Everybody is kind of, hushing their mouth because nobody got to brush their teeth. Nobody got to get a shower because it was just that intensive. And that is what it takes to be successful. And so thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for having me. And of course, at the end, I welcome any questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. That was just it was a mouthful. It was lovely to take in. Before we wrap up the entire program, now is actually the time where you guys are invited to ask your questions. So we have Rashane, we have Victoria, and we have Crystal, and you guys are welcome to ask them any question that you have. The questions that they would have answered, I would have given them those questions. So it was a basic guideline for their presentation. But of course, if you have any question, then now is the time for you to voice it. So there's a question for Victoria. What were your stats like applying for scholarships in terms of GPA, extracurriculars, volunteering, etc.?
Okay, so like mine specifically, or just things that you should kind of aim to get, if you can specify either one. Okay, well, I think in terms of GPA, because scholarships are competitive, I'm not going to lie, I do think you should aim for at least a first class honors, but I do know people who have gotten scholarships with an upper second class. But I definitely think the first class honors puts you at an advantage when applying for scholarships. So that's, I think, a GPA of 3.6 and above. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is, or 3.5 and above for first class. Extracurricular activities are always good as well. I found when applying to Shevening, they were very interested in networking and leadership skills, as well as the things that you did as an individual for your personal development. So not necessarily just school or in the workplace, but what are you doing on your own time to better yourself and to make you a better professional in the field that you are trying to be a part of, basically. So which kind of ties back into your leadership skills, but I definitely think that's what they're interested in. And of course, I think applying to more niche areas are, like, the more niche you are, it kind of is a bit more attractive to them as well. I know that's not necessarily one of the categories you specified, but voluntary work, definitely always a plus. Extracurricular activities, definitely always a plus. And GPA, I would say at least to aim for a first class honors. I think when you do extracurricular activities, again, kind of geared towards the profession that you want to pursue, I think it looks good and it makes them know how serious you are about being you know, a part of that specific profession and the initiative that you're taking on your own time to just get there. So that's what I would say. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Mickey, I skipped over your question. So this one is for Crystal. She's asked, the person's asking, how did you get introduced to stocks?
All right, hey Mickey, and for everybody else who would have that particular question. So I trade stocks, but not predominantly. I predominantly do foreign exchange, which is a lot more volatile and moves a lot quicker. For stocks, I remember, you know, just being very, very transparent here. When I actually got introduced to stocks, they told me that, listen, you're gonna wait for 12 months to get a 30% growth on your money. Yay, yay. And I'm like, wow, but I don't got a job. So how am I gonna pay for school with a 30% increase after 12 months? You know, I'm gonna starve. So the point is, I do foreign exchange, how I got introduced through research, of course, but then later on, I was able to seek a mentor. And as I said before, guys, mentorship is always super important. It's better to learn the right way than to unlearn the wrong way. So I can drop my Instagram here if you guys want. You can always connect with me about it, you know, otherwise. But yeah, hopefully I answered your question.
Awesome, awesome. Question from Brandon. To Victoria, what are you doing your master's degree in?
Okay, so currently I'm doing my master's degree in soil mechanics and engineering seismology.
Okay, Brandon, so she answered your question. Anyone else with a question for 3 speakers? So John Christoph Williams raised his hand. You can go ahead.
Alrighty, so I see here that it says, how does one actually approach a mentor? What would I say? You could start out by just saying, what does it entail? I can say that one of the biggest things that I've learned, because as I said, I don't just do foreign exchange, but other things as well. One of the biggest things I've learned is that research is paramount and asking the right questions, right? And so when you're going, you don't want to be a Gladys, right? You don't want to just say, oh, I want to make money. You want to be able to ask the questions that really, really suit your situation. For instance, let's say that you are a full-time student, you're a master's student, right? Or you're an engineering student. You guys don't have a lot of time. I know this, right? You're going from 8 to 5 every single day, clubs is not a thing. And so when you are communicating with the mentor, you want to let them know that, listen, I have minimum amount of time. The time that I do have at home is spent studying. What type of trading, what type of business do you think would best suit me? All right. And of course, remember, nobody knows your situation as well as you do. And so it's very, very important that you're able to articulate that to the mentor. And then most importantly, make a decision that is best for you.
All right. Thank you, Crystal. So before Brandon's question is answered, John Christoph has raised his hand. So he can go ahead. And then Brandon, you can go ahead afterwards.
Good evening or good afternoon to all. It's a question for Ms. Grant. I wanted to know what was the space between you finishing the undergrad and starting your master's degree, because I understand, I'm currently in second year, and I understand that yes, experience is important, but I kind of want to further my education. So where is like the good mix or a good place to be in, matching up those two options?
Okay, hi John Christoph, thanks for your question. I think that's actually a really good question because I think it's something that people should actually give up. Whichever route you decide to take. So I guess it's just up to the person and what they want to take on. But what I would say is that for me personally, I graduated in 2017 and then I started working at NEPA shortly after my internships after school. And then I was on a 3-year contract at NEPA. And right after that contract ended, I had heard from Siobhan, and then I was able to go to the UK here now and start my master's. So I think there are a lot of benefits to having some work experience before doing your master's, as well as there's a lot of benefits from going straight into the master's from undergrad. So we can touch on each one like one by one. So when you go straight from your undergrad into a master's program, there are concepts that are more fresh in your head. So I definitely think you would perform better at the more theoretical topics. In my case, I thought it was like I was definitely shaking off some webs when I was back in my first 2 weeks of school. I was like, oh my God, I don't even remember these things. What am I doing? How did I get here? What? Like dying, So a part of me at that point was wishing that I had done the master's sooner, because I felt that I would have probably been able to have coped with those more theoretical topics a bit better, because you're just coming out of school, you're just learning about these things. So applying it to a higher level, yes, it would have still been challenging, but at least the foundation would have been fresh in your head. But on the flip side, I have seen a lot of benefits from my industry experience, especially when it comes on to things like communicating with people and learning how to work and to collaborate in, like, for group projects and so forth, presentation skills and how to structure your documents as well. And there are some more like field-based subjects in the master's degree that having some industry experience can help you with, because you have been able to be on site and see how things kind of work a bit more, not just from things in the classroom entirely. And yes, sure, if you do internships throughout your undergrad, you can have some of that experience as well, but there's a lot, it's a lot different when you're working on a project and sticking with that project for months and months and months and seeing it come from, I think Roshane had spoke about this, from seeing something from the conceptual stage into going on site and seeing it actually into like, you know, an actual development and being a part of that. It goes a lot deeper, and it really does strengthen your understanding of things to another level. Having done the things that I've done in the way that I've done them, I think what would be best is if you are able to get some industry experience before doing your master's. What I would say is that it would be better if that industry experience is geared towards what you want to do your master's in. Because in my case, while I was working at Nepal, because it's an environmental agency, a lot of the work I was doing was more related to coastal and environmental. So my industry experience for those fields in particular grew immensely, and my understanding of the material from undergrad for those particular subject areas grew immensely. But from geotech's perspective, which is what I decided to do my master's in, all I really had was my undergrad background. And yes, I got to review a bunch of geotechnical reports while at Nepal, but because you know, soils and geology isn't necessarily under Nepal's mandate, I wasn't as heavily involved in those areas as I was in the other areas. And I think industry experience is best, or it's most advantageous when it's geared towards a specific field that you're doing your master's in. Because I think if I had stuck to doing fluid mechanics and coastal at Imperial before I had switched to soil mechanics, I think my industry experience would have come in more handy, not just from a collaboration or working in teams perspective, but also from, oh, hey, I've learned this at school and I've actually seen this applied in the real world. I think I would have been able to grasp a lot more of the concepts a lot easier. It's not impossible to do a master's program in something that you don't really have a lot of industry experience in. I just think it's a lot difficult. And when you're going from, when you're doing something that when you're doing your master's in something based on what you've done in your undergrad 3 years ago and not having a lot of industry experience in that particular field, it can be very challenging. It's not impossible, but I definitely think that my first month, 2 months, my first semester at Imperial, still this semester as well, but my first semester at Imperial was so difficult. Like, I can't even explain to a human being how immensely difficult my first semester at Imperial was. So I definitely think if you're going to get industry experience, gear it towards what you think you want to do your master's in. If you're not sure, I think also working in industry can buy you some time to figure things out. But if you're super confident in what you want to do or what to further your education in, and you're able to do a lot of internships in school, then you could do your master's right away. But I definitely think getting some field experience is very, very important. So it just kind of depends on, I guess, your approach to things, what you think you can handle based on how much you know yourself and how you react to stress and all of those things. But there are pros and cons to both. It just depends on the person, really and truly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Victoria. I'm gonna take 2 more questions, guys, so that we can wrap up. This one is from Timothy. It's for Crystal. If I cannot find a mentor in my immediate environment, where else can I receive mentorship? And he's also asking for you to drop your social media handle so that you guys can keep in touch if you have any questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. I went ahead and I dropped both my email and my IG, so you can feel free to connect with me anywhere. And regarding your immediate environment, as I said before, guys, it doesn't matter if the person is in your immediate environment or not. You just want to ensure that you are asking the right questions and that you're being very, very transparent. And of course, remember that you want to do your research too. All right. So when you're approaching this person, you have your information, but also they have to present what it is that they'll be doing for you. Because remember, when you buy somebody's opinion, you also get their results. So if they're not where you want to be, then you won't be where you need to be with their mentorship. All right, hopefully that helped. You guys should be seated in the chats.
Okay, all right, awesome. Guys, one more question. We'll take one more question. All right, so I'm not seeing anyone else with a question. So guys, I hope that they have fruitfully answered your questions, and Crystal here has given you her contact information, and of course, Mr. Palmer, and well, some of our other speakers have also given some contact information, so you can follow up with them. All right, so at this time, I'm going to ask our secretary to just conclude today's event. So I invite Ms. Kai Clark to conclude today's event.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I would just like to say that I'm feeling very empowered, especially as a woman. You guys have been so inspirational and so motivational. I'm feeling just giddy at my prospects of the future, at what I can do, what I'm able to do. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone else who came, the ones who are asking the questions. Some of the questions I wouldn't have even thought of myself. I feel so inspired, and I'm sure others feel inspired too. So just thank you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everyone for coming out, and the speakers will be in touch about your tokens. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their evening. Stay safe. All right, that's it for today. And guys, if you missed a presentation, this was streamed live on our YouTube and it's saved there, so you can go back, you can look, and yeah. All right, guys, so enjoy the rest of your evening.